We also are going to be speaking about the policy paralysis, the big charge made by the BJP on the Congress under the Manmohan Singh governments in the two. All right, starting off with Dr. Jayji Bhattacharya. Dr. Bhattacharya, there has been a significant chunk of forex reserves that had been handed over to the UPA government after 2004. And which was being handed over under the Vajpayee era, and that amount had been considerably reduced to our foreign exchange, lasting us just about a week, and it has shown back a resilient uptick in the Modi era. What is foreign reserve a reflection of for a country?
So the foreign reserve kind of reflects a lot of things. Basically, it reflects to an extent the strength of the country in terms of exports and in terms of its ability to fund exports in the future. It is not necessarily that we should accumulate a large amount of foreign exchange just for the sake of it. It's not something fashionable. But what it helps in is to assure that you have enough money to be able to import essentials such as possibly food, oil, and so on and so forth. And typically you keep 6 months as the forex buffer that you need for imports. And what had happened, and I think we should revisit 1991 over here, which is where we were at an abysmal level where we had only about 6 weeks of money left in terms of foreign exchange for being able to fund our imports. And it was a critical situation. We were going bankrupt. Pretty much we were going the way Pakistan or Sri Lanka has gone. And therefore we had liberalization. But the question doesn't come up as to why we reached that level. What happened because we reached that level is because the previous politicians, I'm not a political expert, but from an economic perspective, they kept pandering to the masses. There was VP Singh, and then there was Rajiv Gandhi from two different political parties who were both from one party, and then they split. And they competed against each other to open up the coffers and give freebies to people. And in that competition between them, we ended up finishing up all our treasury. If you cut to 2014, we had about $100 billion as forex. That's what the Vajpayee government left. So in about roughly 10 years' time, we went from almost zero to 100 billion. And then in the next 10 years, we could hardly do double up that forex. And from there till now, we have got $600 billion plus. So 6 times the foreign exchange went up from 2013 to 2014. That just shows how strong the economy is, how our goods and services are needed all over the world. And that has happened because being backed by the government to ensure that we get a very strong industry without which these exports would never have happened.
Saying that, the forex increased to $300 billion as opposed to what the government of India in its paper has released.
Now, at some point in time, 300 billion was touched in UPA, but it promptly went down. And when they handed over the regime to the next regime, it was at 270 billion, if not lower. So at the end of 2013, it was 270. It slid even further after that. So putting figures out of context is not the correct thing to do. Even when we say that one of the highest growth rate was achieved in the UPA era, which is true in terms of the number. But the context was that before that, there was a global depression, and along with it, India did extremely badly. And so on the back of a very low growth, we were able to get a higher growth the next year. So all of these have context to it. In terms of the, if you look at the percentage growth in Forex, because that was the number being challenged. And I hear the co-panelist kept saying he does not understand economics and still insisted on explaining economics. So if one spends money in Indian rupee, is wondering how forex gets depleted. I've tried to explain multiple times. I'll explain that again. When you spend money in rupees without producing anything, then it leads to inflation because you're pumping in cash without any productive assets getting created. When you do that, then your rupee gets weakened in terms of foreign exchange rate. When your rupee gets weakened, you'll have to spend more dollars to buy anything that you need in this country, and which is how you start depleting your foreign exchange.
Absolutely.
In terms of we were at $100 billion in 2004, and in end of 2013, we were $270 billion, and it went further down. So in terms of increase, we had a 2.5 times increase between 2014 and 2013. Post that, we are now at around 606, $610 billion, which is a 3.5 times increase in forex. So these are straight multiplication. You don't even need to be an economist to do these multiplications. So in every aspect that you see, there has been a significant change that has happened. Let me take, more deeper examples which were not reflected in the white paper. Let's just take, for example, penicillin G. The industry kept asking for an anti-dumping duty on penicillin G, which was denied. And many of these were CPSUs, they were public sector companies. And the Indian government they bought penicillin from Chinese companies, and at a price that was half of what the Indian companies could produce. And it finished off the Indian companies, and then the Chinese companies jacked up their price by 8 times. Now this government is spending 15,000 crores to get these penicillin G companies back on track through the PLI scheme. If you look at even the gap in terms of our trade with China, in 2004, the gap was about 2,000 crore. About $1.4 billion was the trade deficit between India and China in 2004. In 2013-14, it ballooned up to $36 billion, 25 times. Why did that happen? Between 2004 and 2014, why did the trade deficit balloon from $1.4 billion to $36 billion with China? What was so friendly about China that we allowed this? There are examples after examples that we show, which is inexplicable as to why a government which is running India for the benefit of India, Indian businesses and Indian citizens took steps which are not really helping out any of these stakeholders.